The year is 53 BC. The sands of northern Mesopotamia stretch for miles under a blistering sun. 7 Roman legions march toward what they believe will be another conquest. Their commander, Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, expects a swift victory over the Parthian Empire. He is wrong. By sunset, 20,000 Romans are dead. 10,000 more are taken prisoner, marched east into the Parthian interior, and then they vanish. But what if those soldiers didn't die? What if they kept moving through Central Asia across the Silk Road until they reached the edge of the known world? What if a Roman legion ended up in China? If you always enjoyed a realistic history content, kindly hit subscribe and turn on notifications so we uncover history full of secrets together. Now let's dive into it. The Battle of Carrhae was not just a defeat, it was a humiliation. Crassus had walked into a trap. The Parthians, a mobile army of horse archers and heavy cavalry, never let the Roman infantry close the distance. Arrows rained down for hours. When Crassus attempted to negotiate, he was cut down. His head, according to legend, was delivered to the Parthian king and used as a prop in a Greek tragedy performance. Rome had suffered few defeats this total, but the dead were the lucky ones. The 10,000 prisoners were marched more than 1,000 miles east, across the Parthian Empire, to a frontier outpost called Merv, Alexandria Margiana, in modern-day Turkmenistan. There, the historical record goes silent. Roman sources never mention them again. For 2,000 years, no one knew what happened next, until a sinologist named Homer Dubs found a clue buried in ancient Chinese texts. In 1957, Homer Dubs, an American professor of Chinese history at Oxford University, published a paper titled "A Roman City in Ancient China." He connected a chain of evidence that seemed impossible. The Chinese name for Rome had been Liqian. Dubs found that Liqian was also the name of a small village in Gansu province, in northwestern China. It was the only settlement in the entire Han Dynasty census named after a foreign civilization. Why would a remote Chinese village carry the name of an empire 5,000 miles away? Dubs proposed the answer: because Roman soldiers had been settled there. The timing lined up. In 36 BC, 17 years after Carrhae, a Han Dynasty army led by General Chen Tong fought a battle against Xiongnu nomads near the village of Zhizhi in modern-day Kazakhstan. The Chinese records describe something extraordinary. The Xiongnu had foreign mercenaries who fought in a formation the Chinese had never seen before. They described it as soldiers locking their shields together like fish scales. Dubs recognized it instantly. The Roman testudo, the tortoise formation. The Romans had not vanished. They had been sold, traded, or migrated across Asia until they became mercenaries on the Silk Road. Liqian is not large. Even today, it sits on the edge of the Gobi Desert, a small, dusty settlement in the shadow of the Liqian Mountains. But its residents have always stood out. Visitors throughout the 20th century reported something unusual: green eyes, blonde hair, fair skin, features that do not belong in rural Gansu province. For decades, the people of Liqian told a local legend that they were descended from a lost army of foreign soldiers who had arrived 2,000 years ago. Journalists traveled there. Television crews arrived. The story of China's Roman village spread across the world. In 2010, headlines exploded. Genetic tests show Chinese villagers are descended from Romans. Reports claimed that DNA analysis had found 60% European ancestry in the Liqian population. The lost legion had been found, or had it. Science does not care about legends. In 2007, a team of geneticists from Lanzhou University and the Chinese Academy of Sciences conducted the most rigorous test possible. They collected Y chromosome samples from 227 male residents of Liqian. The chromosome is passed directly from father to son, unchanged for generations. If Roman soldiers had settled in Liqian and fathered children, their paternal DNA would still be detectable 2,000 years later. The results were definitive: no match. The Y chromosome profiles of the Liqian men were indistinguishable from the surrounding Han Chinese and other East Asian populations. There was no Roman signal, no European signal. The Roman legion, genetically speaking, had left no trace. A larger follow-up study confirmed it. The people of Liqian are, in their paternal lineage, Chinese. The green eyes and fair features that drew so much attention? They could be explained by Silk Road traders, Central Asians, Persians, or other travelers who passed through this crossroads settlement over centuries. The legendary Roman city was a myth.
But here is where it gets deeper. The DNA did not disprove everything. It merely disproved one version of the story. Think about what we do know. 10,000 Roman soldiers were marched to the edge of the Parthian Empire. The Battle of Zhizhi, 17 years later, did feature a foreign fighting force using a formation that the Chinese, who had never encountered Roman infantry, described as a shield wall that looked like fish scales. The Romans were not the only ones who used such formations, but they were among the few who used them so distinctively that an enemy commander would record it. And Liqian, the village named after Rome, still sits at the crossroads of the ancient Silk Road. The truth is not that a Roman legion built a Chinese city. It is that the ancient world was more connected than we ever imagined. From the Mediterranean to the Gobi Desert, ideas, people, and bloodlines moved. The Romans may not have left their DNA in Liqian, but the story of their journey, the possibility of it, tells us something real about the world 2,000 years ago. So what really happened to the lost legion? Some died in Parthian captivity. Some were probably resettled in Merv and assimilated within a generation. Some may have drifted further east, sold as mercenaries, traded as slaves, or simply seeking a life beyond the empire that had sent them to die. A few of them may have fought at Zhizhi, but they did not build a city in China. They did not leave a genetic dynasty. What they left was a story that survived for 2,000 years, passed through Chinese court chronicles, through the work of a curious Oxford professor, through the DNA labs of Lanzhou University, and eventually reached us. The lost Roman legion was never truly lost. It lived in the question. Because in the end, history is not just about what happened. It is about what we are willing to believe. And the idea that two ancient superpowers, Rome and Han China, touched, even briefly, at the edge of a Gobi Desert village, is a story worth telling.